Well, I want to thank you for being a guest here.
Sure, happy to do it.
Yeah, the Potentialist. This is going to be. I'm just fascinated by the work you're doing right now,
Thank you.
and
Me too.
yeah, I was having a conversation with Peter Diamandis not too long ago about just the nature of and the acceleration of change,
Hmm.
and yeah, I think this is going to be something that we can play with quite a bit.
Yeah, yeah. It's something that I met. I was very fortunate. I'm in high school. I was fascinated by science fiction. I was a big
Oh,
reader all my life,
yeah,
and then when I got a little older, I understood the difference between a science fiction writer who predicts the future with fiction, and futurists who do it with facts and numbers and research. And so I followed a lot of them, and was the best. Probably, I still think the best books on the future ever written were Alvin Toffler's
Toffler's.
series. And so I actually took a lot of Toffler's principles when I started building these companies, because I was building them very fast and they had to remain highly mobile. And so I did a push down accountability, independent operating units, things like that. And so one day Tom Peters picked up on us and
Yeah.
actually included us in his In Search of Excellence books.
Oh, what Anthem
and
or
Accordia. Yeah.
yeah.
The broker I built, Accordia and Anthem. And so Tom, I get a call one day, and I guess he knew Toffler, I guess, somehow, because one day I'm sitting at my desk and I get this about 1996, I think, something like that. And I get this call. My secretary comes in and she said, "Hey, there's this guy really wanting to talk to you." And he says, "You'll want to talk to him." And I said, "Well, what's his name?" And she said, "Alvin Toffler." And I went, "Give me the phone." So we hit it off, and because I guess Peters told him, "Hey, this guy's really applying your stuff." And so he ended up speaking at my board retreat, and we got to know each other, and I learned a lot from him, and really doubled down. And of course, now what he predicted then is here in full speed. And AI is how we will adapt to both the pace and the complexity and the amount of information we have to deal with.
Yeah.
That's our solution. Everybody hadn't woken up to it yet because the dang press.
That was one of the things that Peter was.
The press scared the hell out of him.
Oh yeah, it's going yeah. No. I mean, hey, the steam engine is going to replace the buggy whip, I promise, and everybody's
Absolutely.
This is fascinating. Well, we've already started here. I usually start with an introduction, but those of you that are listening, we're just going to pick this up. Ben Lytle is my guest here today, and pardon?
Lytle, by the way.
Lytle. Yes, I'm sorry. I had that in my notes. Ben, I checked with your publicist on that, and then I forgot about it. He's a serial entrepreneur in a lot of ways, but the 7 different companies that I believe that you've started and exited. The 2 major ones that people are probably most familiar with was Accordia, and then Anthem Health, which is now Elevance.
Correct.
And I think that's market cap about 120 billion or something like that.
Yeah, that's correct.
It's not chump change.
No. It exceeded my dreams, my wildest dreams.
So, when did you exit Anthem?
I took an early retirement. I was only 52, and I had built it. I was proud of it in Cordia, but it had been a brutal 11 years. And I like building companies more than I like running big public companies. Big public companies are wonderful, and we need them, and I admire the people who do it. But it's a lot of time doing things I don't enjoy, and a lot more that I like, which is creating and building. Yeah. So, and also my son and I had wanted to go into business together. He had wanted to be an entrepreneur since he was 18. He was then in his 30s and was ready. And so I wanted to do that with him. I wanted to live at optimum health. really optimize my health and live it that way, which is, again, very hard to do with the demands of a big public company CEO.
It is. Yeah.
And most importantly, I wanted to be there and watch each of my 8 grandkids be born and hold them right after they're born and have them grow up in my house. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And so that's what called me. And we were very successful in the companies we built. We built something I'm as proud of as Anthem, which was, we didn't invent the product. This brilliant lady did, named Mary Swanson, but we took the product national, which was Silver Sneakers.
Oh, gosh.
Which is the largest exercise program, I think, in the United States.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, and average age 78. And again, what I like to do is I like to build, when I start talking about building something, if people go, well, that's crazy, that's never going to work. I go, I want something. So that was true with Silver Sneakers. So, but with all these companies, but we've been very successful. And the 7th one is an AI company designed to increase productivity in businesses, but also in all of us, because we all have got 10, 20, 30% of what we do doesn't require us, and it's a waste of our time. And we can offload it if we want. And more importantly, to become our best, to become our professional best and our personal best. And so it is the Potentialist series. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, and that's what was really intriguing to me when the note came across my desk, and I said, "Absolutely, I want to have a conversation here. This is good stuff." And there's a couple of different buckets that and we don't have to go there, but I was
right. No, I'm happy to.
Yeah, the idea, healthcare. I mean, particularly hospitals. You were on the not on the provider side. You were on the insurance side.
I've been on both, actually.
On both sides.
Yeah. I built a complex care in the home company, and so been on both sides understand both sides.
Well, I was at a medical institute this last December. My wife has got a particularly significant disease, and so we were down there being treated with it, and it was integrative medicine. And my experience in the 3 weeks that we were there was, we were living there, for all intents and purposes. She had 8 professionals on her team: an oncologist, a functional medicine integrative doc, a psychologist, a nutritionist, a mind-body practitioner, a dentist, a chiropractor, a sports physiologist. Yeah. And they were talking every day about her health care. Yeah. And it struck me that this is how every hospital in the universe should be organized. It's not treating the symptom, it was treating the whole person.
And honestly, was the disease. That's the way more than I would say, every hospital, because hospitals see a small percentage of all patients.
Right.
But it's actually the opposite when you get outside. We have these wonderful specialties, and specialties are how you really go deep and get deep knowledge on something. But we don't integrate it well normally. And what you just spoke of is the exception, unfortunately, instead of the rule. And so if you're a person who, let's say, has diabetes and heart trouble and some respiratory issues, maybe you've got some joint issues now, you could easily be seeing 6 specialists as she is, and be taking 15 prescriptions. And that's very difficult. It doesn't work real well in our system, and it's nobody's fault.
Right.
But so that's one of the places where AI can play an incredibly important role, because you put the integration dock inside your phone.
Yep.
And the data inside your AI model. And that dock knows everything about you and integrates it. And that's where the future's headed. And
it's interesting you say that, because one of the professionals that she sat down with, the very first meeting, he said to her, "I know everything about you."
There you go.
And he wasn't joking. It was like her entire history.
That's what we need. And thank God. I mean, we were, as you well know, 15, 20 years, 25 years ago, it was even hard to convince a lot of the older physicians at that time that there was even such a thing as mind body. Didn't believe it. Nah, or what's a nutritionist going to tell me? I literally had a doctor say to me, this wasn't that long ago. I mean, it was 7 or 8 years ago. And he said to me, show me the evidence, literally, show me the evidence that exercise and diet and all that makes any difference at all.
Yeah.
And I just said, oh my gosh, what happened to your mother? where was you? You didn't have my mom.
Yeah. Boy. Yeah, well, one of the radiologists that we were working up with here in Seattle, we asked him about diet, and he says, "Eat anything that you want. It makes no difference. I just don't want you to lose weight." Well, diet makes a big difference.
Sure.
And I was kind of, okay, we'll take that with a breath of water, and literally with a breath of water.
Yeah.
And
no, I think, but your model that you just described, that you're experiencing, I'm so happy you're having that. And when we get to the point where that's the experience of 95% of the people entering the healthcare system, because it's integrated for them somehow using technology, is going to be that'll be a bellwether event.
Yeah, I think it will be. And I think the catalyst on that is going to be moving finger pointing out of the whole conversation. Just kind of let's forget who's to blame. Nobody's to blame. It is the way that it is. What do we want to have happen here?
Yep.
And you wrote a paper. It was something, the 21st century Renaissance.
Yeah.
And I was looking at that in A Case for Hope in Challenging Times. Both of those things were really kind of interesting to me.
Yeah.
Folks, you can find these on the website, and I'll give you that information here in just a minute. It's the potentialistfuture.com, but it'll be in the show notes. Talk a little bit about the potentialist. I mean, this is kind of the next phase in what you're doing right now, and I am just fascinated with what you're putting in front of us.
Yeah, it's 3 books, and the books are simply, as you're seeing, there's a lot of video, a lot of writing I'm doing, particularly a lot of video these days, to help explain some of the concepts in the book. But the principles, the way it started was about 10 years ago, 8 years ago. I, having always been a futurist and all this stuff, and once a year I really go off on about this time of the year and really reflect. Am I doing everything I can do? Am I giving the best of myself to my family, to my community, and to the world? I'm using all my talents. And I realized that one thing I knew that virtually hardly anybody knew at that point was how much the world was going to change and how fast. Yeah. And how we were going to have to adapt, because every change in history, you mentioned the Renaissance, the Enlightenment, 3 prior industrial revolutions, require a major adaptive change by everybody on the planet. Mm-hmm. But normally we don't tell people what to do. They just have to guess. Yeah. So only about 15% of the people prosper in the beginning, because they're the ones who are more adaptive to change. So I said, I got to do something about that. Starting with I thought about just my family originally, and then some people in the publishing and field and some writers said, you need to publish this. A lot of people talk about the future, but nobody talks about what to do. So that's my 3 books. The first book says, here's what the future is going to look like. I call it a new reality, because that's what it's going to be. It is already a new reality. And then here's 7 things to do that are foundational to succeed. Foundational. So things that were always good to do, but now they're essential, like taking care of your health, like having some financial reserves, because you're going to live a lot longer. You're going to go through a lot more jobs, being able to learn faster. And there's more on that. So that's the first book. The second book, though, it was in the process of my research. You see that each time we had to make one of these adaptive changes, it was significant. Well, this is going to be the fastest, most profound set of changes in history. Yeah. So our leap has to be bigger this time. Bigger in concept, but not any harder. and that is to achieve our potential and become wise. That's the prize. And when I explain, and there's a whole, I explain what wisdom is, I explain how you develop it, what it looks like. I interviewed over 400 people that I consider to be extraordinarily wise in the last 30 years, 35 years. I think I know what they look like and what you have to do. And so what I tried to do in this second book was to summarize the best of mainstream psychology. So what Jung's work, Freud's work, Adler's work, Maslow's work, and the best of classical philosophy. Because we've been teaching this stuff for thousands of years. Yeah. We just forgot how. We forgot how important it is. Now it's really important because it'll be the most important skill you can have in a world where it changes so fast and so many decisions have to be made by individuals, not by institutions. We can't trust the institutions to make them anymore. Right. So we do. We have to do it. And that means we have to be a lot wiser. And you can learn that. We can definitely learn that.
Hi, I'd like to ask you to do something for me if you wouldn't mind. If you like this episode, I'd like you to not only subscribe on your favorite site, but I'd also like you to give a rating. Ideally, a 5-star rating would be greatly appreciated. But I think more importantly also would be just some comments. That helps with the algorithm and it helps build the audience with this. And more than anything else, if you could invite somebody else to listen, just share this episode with a friend, with a colleague. And I'd like to see how we can grow the soul of business. I think it makes a difference. Thanks. Where does critical thinking come into this? And I ask that question because I look at the education system that we have today and the influence of social media. And critical thinking seems to have gone out with the bathwater.
Well, critical thinking at its best is wisdom.
Yes.
Because wisdom's ultimate definition is the height of rational thinking and behavior, because you balance the interest of your eternal self, and you balance the interest of the temporal self on here on earth, and you balance your interest with others, and you're constantly balancing. And that skill at knowing how to do that is fundamentally what wisdom is. So what I tried to do in this second book then was make it accessible to everybody. I really hope to play a role. I don't mean by myself. There's many people working on the same thing in different words. But we are headed to democratizing wisdom and human potential and expanding human potential at the same time. Mm-hmm. That's what this new reality is going to end up being. And it's why I'm so excited about it. And why I mean, of course, we'll have problems. That's part of wisdom. You understand, you solve problems and you create new ones. And why do you create new ones? Because the tension between now says, okay, we'll go fix those now. And that's how we continue to advance as creatures. So we will have problems for sure. But I believe humanity's brightest days we could not have imagined 10 years ago, are in front of us.
Oh, I absolutely. Here, I saw a piece, and actually, Peter. I keep referencing Peter Diamandis.
Yeah, I'm a fan of his as well.
Oh, I love him. I got something the other day from him. Alexander the Great, when he conquered Egypt, stood and looked at the Great Pyramids. He was closer in time to the iPhone than he was to the construction of the Great Pyramids.
Wow, that's a fabulous reference point.
What
fabulous reference point?
And nothing fundamentally changed until literally the Industrial Revolution, where everything just kind of took off like a skyrocket about 250 years ago or so, when Adam Smith published The Wealth of Nations.
Yeah.
And what was interesting to me, just because as I step back from that, and you talk about the spiritual self and the temporal self, just kind of the wisdom of balancing that. The pace of change was so slow that the relational dynamic between those two wasn't perturbed all that much.
Yep.
And what I'm experiencing today is that it's not a problem with the rate of change. It's the problem with change is the disruption to relationships that change is causing. Right. And the acceleration of change is causing a perturbation in relational dynamics that is off the charts at this point in time.
Yeah, and I the reason I'm confident we'll work through it, but I agree with you where we are now, is again looking back at history and how we've gone through these kind of changes before. At the end of the day, even though these electronic communications right now seem to be very disruptive, they're disruptive to what we've known. But when you think about the potential to have a conversation with people around the world on a subject, and there's no language barrier.
Yeah.
Because language translation is instant, and there's no language barrier. And then go a step further, and the holograms make it feel like you are in the room together. And we'll get better and better at that.
Yep.
And if you can imagine sitting there with a hologram. Now it would be an actor, but it would be his mind of sitting there with Aristotle.
Oh, I'd love that.
and having a conversation in your living room with Aristotle or whoever your favorite or your great-great-grandfather who passed away, but you got an electronic alter ego of him before. It's mind-blowing what we will be able to do. And that's where relationships will come back around. And I'll also, one thing, and I'd love your opinion on this as well, but I believe this is where population decline also works in our favor.
Mm-hmm.
As there are fewer of us, we'll value each other more, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I was one of the early people to get involved in the population decline and being aware more than 25 years ago that this was coming. And I've been speaking on it, built 2 businesses around it. And one of the things that hit me early on was I started watching, I have friends and spend a lot of time in Italy. And I've watched what's happened there over the last 25 years. And I would tell you today, most people, even very well-informed people, don't realize how fast this is going to occur and how profound it is.
Yep, I agree with you.
One of the flip sides, and because literally you can see it in Italy. I mean, and if you think about it, you have 3 kids to stay. You need 7 kids out of the 3 to stay flat. Nobody's having that many kids anymore.
No.
Now, one child decides to have none. You're sure not going to get 4 and 3. So they have 2 or maybe between them 3. Take that one more generation. And you see in 2 generations, it just drops like a rock.
Drops off a cliff.
So, but I think, and it has both, positive and negative consequences. We have to grow productivity faster than the rate of population decline to keep our economies working. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, economies don't work anymore. And
that's another interesting point. Yeah. I'm on the board of the World Business Academy, which is a futurist think tank, and when we were instrumental in formulating just capital's metrics. Actually, the idea of just capital.
Right.
And one of the things that we're looking at is what's an alternative to ever increasing literally ever increasing consumerism, because we don't have, the resources aren't there to consume in the way that that our economies are built to favor. Yeah. Right. So productivity for the sake of what? And what are we producing?
Right.
Becomes a different question, I think.
Right. No, I agree with you. But at the end of the day, just using today's model, we're too dependent on consumer purchasing to drive the economy. Now, wealth can have an effect.
Yep.
You can increase wealth per capita, and then they will spend more and consume. But at the end of the day, and it's hard for us today to imagine how we might consume, but suddenly if we could take if a transatlantic rocket flight was an hour, it could totally change economics and dynamics. And you don't have to go either.
You don't have to go, right? I'll send my hologram. Have your hologram meet my hologram over coffee, and we'll talk about it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
But John Maynard Keynes back in the 30s wrote a little missive, and I'll just paraphrase it. But he said, if capitalism works in the way that we envision it working, there will come a time where we won't have to work for the basics, food, shelter. I mean, those sorts of things. The big conundrum that mankind will then face is, what do we do with our time?
See, I view it totally different. I am the opposite of Keynesian.
Okay.
Because what will happen is we're not going to go sit under trees.
Right.
That's not who we're made of. We are a creative being. What we're going to do is unleash creative activity in a way we have never seen. And so, when I talk about AI, sometimes, what about the people that have I have more confidence in people than that.
Yeah.
And human beings in that. And so I literally dream, and I've said this to many audiences, I dream of the day I look out my window and I don't have a single landscaper. There's one guy out there with a joystick driving everything. But what happened to all those people? They're now doing higher order work, because I know some of these folks. They're bright. They're creative. These are just the only jobs available to them. When they can self-educate, when they can hopefully read my book and pursue their potential and become wise, they will become extraordinarily valuable. And so I see the value of the work we do going way up. Now you put some more science on that. Brain to computer interfaces. So already we now can talk to our computers and tell them what to do.
Mm-hmm.
That opens a whole lot of people who couldn't access them before. They just couldn't master it. Now go one more step and imagine the thought to computer interface. Already working on it. And, Elon Musk's work and Neuralink and other companies like his, they're implanting chips, but they're also looking at external ones. External, where we can literally, maybe it'll be an earpiece, and we can think something and do it. And we can collectively operate as one mind.
Yeah.
Now imagine that. And I think that's going to be here within 20 years.
Yeah. It's one of the things that I think is on your website, there will be more life-altering change in the next 30 years than most people can fathom.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. And so Carl Jung at one point in time said, without the play of the imagination, nothing of consequence was ever created.
Exactly.
And that's what
so imagine now unleashing. Imagine unleashing the power of creativity in every human being by multiple factors and putting them at work to solve problems, to invent solutions, to make beautiful things, whatever we do. And it's not like we haven't got a lot to do. We got a few problems here on Earth we can do something about. And then we finish those, and we'll have other places to go.
Continual utopias. I was sailing in the BVI a whole bunch of years ago, and we had some engine difficulty, and we were on the other side of an island, and the marina sent somebody over to work on the engine. And this guy's down there, and all of a sudden he's taking stuff apart. And I looked down there going, well, that's really interesting what you're doing. And he looked at me and he said, they don't pay me to think, but sometimes I do.
I love it.
He was jury rigging this thing, and it worked for the rest of the cruise.
And one of the things that's is a constant and it's so often still drives us as human beings is we underestimate ourselves, and then we project that underestimation onto the entire human race.
Yep.
And I'll give you some examples. This is why when I talk to audiences about this, about becoming wise and in reaching your potential, I'll say to them, I'll bet not a one of you would object to it as an aspiration for, and if we could alter it, wow, wouldn't that be wonderful? But you're saying, I don't think it's possible.
Yeah.
Now, when you do that, stop and think about this. About 600-700 years ago, the common thought was that human beings, regular people like us, couldn't be trusted to own land.
Yeah.
Only the church and the royalty could own land. But we did okay, I'd say. and then go another couple of hundred years and what do you mean read? Why would they want to read? We tell them everything they need to know. Again, another, at that time, huge change. Private education, huge change. And probably the one should be near and dear to all our heart. Self-rule.
Yeah.
The foundation of this nation broke all the laws that said people can't be trusted to self-rule. They have to have a king tell them what to do. And I think we've done just fine, and so is the whole world. This is no harder. In fact, it's easier because this is something we can each do ourselves on our own time. Doesn't cost any money. Doesn't cost a lot of time. It just simply takes a new level of awareness.
Awareness precedes choice. Increased awareness, you begin to see other choices.
Yeah, absolutely.
Folks, we've been listening and talking and conversing with, I've loved this. We could go on. I mean, I'm going to be respectful of your time here.
No, you too, though. I enjoy very much talking to you.
I'd love to have you back on the show.
I'd love to do it. I'd love
to. And I've got a couple of other shows that would be really interesting to have you on, particularly as your book's coming out. We can get some very interesting, I think, cachet to it.
Good.
Ben Lytle, The Potentialist. Folks, check him out. The website, again, is The Potentialist. Oops, let me bring that back up here. Potentialistfuture.com.
Correct.
Potentialistfuture.com. Check it out.
That's an e-learning site, so there'll be continuous content upgrades there. And very
soon, a newsletter there that they can sign up for.
And very soon, optionally, you can talk to my alter ego, my AI alter ego, and if you want, I'll teach you the book or answer questions about it.
Perfect. Ben, thank you so much for gracing the airwaves with me today. I love this.
Thank you. It's been a delight. Appreciate it.
Folks, you've been listening to The Soul of Business with Blaine Bartlett. As always, my admonition as I sign off here is find a way in your life to be a center of distribution, not a center of accumulation. Nature works. The only free market economy in the world is nature. It doesn't work through accumulation as a model. It works through distribution. So model nature. You'll find your life works out really well.